Frank, my
Okay.
friend, welcome to the campfire.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here.
So I want to jump right in because not a lot of us can recall our lives all the way back to the point where we're say 5, 6, 7 years old. And I want you to talk a little bit about how that whole thing works and how that what that all represents. And then we'll get into a few other subjects real quick.
Okay. So, so how it works, well, like it started when I was not quite 6 years old. I was homesick from kindergarten for a week. I'll date myself when I say this, back in 1966. And I was too sick to even be up playing with toys. So I had this calendar that my uncle had given me from down the street for that entire year, 66. So I sat there and looked at each block of a date and pictured and played the music in my head of the coming on scene for what would be on primetime TV that night. In those years, it was Batman, The Green Hornet, Wonderful World of Disney. And so by the end of the week, I realized that I knew every date for that entire year. Like I knew that Thanksgiving was going to, in America, was going to be November 24th, and Christmas was going to be a Sunday that year. And then as each day went on, ever since then, for the past 58 years, I would make mental notes each day about if I notice the weather or see something on the news, as well as personal experiences. And I would make mental notes about it and what date it is. So consequently, now I remember not only the day of the week, but something about each date since the end of February 1966.
So is it something you've trained yourself to do? Because I know that I read that they did a study on you, and there's actually a term or a label for this whole thing.
Yes, they did a study at the University of California that I participated in, and they just that well, the technical name is hyperthymesia, and they they call it highly superior autobiographical memory, which, as a writer, I wish they had been more grammatically correct and just call it superior autobiographical memory. But because it's the idea, like it's not like photographic, like a list of faces and attach names to them and remember it, or memorize a long poem. It's more like just remembering autobiographical events.
It's intriguing, and I'm sure that, as a writer, being able to recall on experiences to the T like that is beneficial. But I'm also imagining that throughout the course of just daily life, that could become a bit of a challenge of its own because it causes you to recall things so deeply and so with so much intent behind them that you have to probably almost relive or experience the feelings, whether they're good or whether they're bad.
Yes, well, that happens where memories will pop up on my head all the time. And I studied psychology and became a licensed professional counselor and writer because I wanted to learn how to get rid of the negative feelings from the not so pleasant memories. Because I'm always going to remember the events, but it'd be nice to get rid of the feelings, yet retain the feelings from the happier memories.
And as you mentioned, you work with other folks and trying to overcome all these things that impede them. I'm sure because of this photographical memory, it makes it where it's a lot easier for you to hold them accountable, or you're probably one of the ideal accountability buddies, if you will.
Oh, yes, I am that. And it's it's funny. My first book came out, which was Living with a Phenomenal Memory, which is a memoir of how I did it and what it was like having this memory. And and I was first starting to date my wife at the same time, and she said, you're not to bring up like, oh, this is the 11th anniversary of a fight we had or things like that. So, so it was funny that way. And people can get very stubborn about what they think, but I can hold it to them. Like, no, there was not an ice storm on that day. It's just that when the sun set, the roads got icy because it got below freezing, and things like that.
In my mind, that's where, coaches really come in to helping somebody get themselves unstuck, is that accountability. You know, we all look to, in our society today, we look for people to give us the answers to whatever it is we're trying to overcome or go through. But when we don't get those answers from somebody else, it's almost as if we start to make excuses. Well, for example, like the example you gave, if I was to come to you with something and say, "Oh, well, I couldn't do it because there was an ice storm that day," and then you come back with the actual account of the weather, then it makes you have to turn around, and hey, it makes you have to look at yourself. And that's where I feel like this is probably one of those like almost superpowers in the world of helping somebody learn and develop that self accountability.
Yes, well, that's it. Of course, as a therapist, I know that the only way people get better is when they take accountability and don't blame others for, because then they can start working on their issues. When they take accountability for it, and I'm very big on that. I mean, sometimes in my personal life, people will or won't take accountability for things, but I can't. I mean, I won't push them on it because all that would do is I'd get frustrated. But with my clients, I do push. Well, look at your role in this and what you can do about it.
And I want to dive more into that personal role because, as you mentioned, it brings back these feelings and these thoughts and stuff. And a lot of what led you down the path to the work that you do was your curiosity about how to let go of those feelings. So I want to talk almost a little bit more in depth and dive deep into that process that you learned. Start with me from the moment where it became curious to you about how to actually take care of this into how you started to put those things into practice.
Okay, well, I've been remembering everything for a few years when I noticed the winter when I was in eighth grade. It was a tough time. Watergate in America. I don't know where you are right now, but in America, the Watergate hearings, and they brought daylight saving time back in January, and so walking to school in the getting up and walking to school in the dark, and it was like, last year and the year before, I was a lot happier, even in the winter time. I mean, I like summer the best, but I started thinking, how can I change this? I mean, I was doing really well in school, and my family had just bought a house at the Jersey Shore for vacation, but yet I wasn't feeling too good. And I thought, well, first was pressures to do well, which a lot of it I put on myself. But then I thought, how can somebody at one particular time be so happy, but yet not so happy at other times? And that's when I really started thinking, I need to let go of some of this negativity. I got tired of this black and white thinking, like everything was either really good or really bad, and thought, well, I can change the way I look at certain things. Like if something went, like when I got older and was dating, well, losing a romantic relationship was painful at first, but then it was an opportunity to meet someone else or to enjoy being single for a while. And rejection from a job. Okay, well, there's probably another opportunity up the pike. So by changing my thinking about things, it helped me get rid of the bad feelings from negative memories.
So a lot of that revolves around self talk.
Yes, a lot of it does, like, because we're all talking to ourselves all day, and only little kids and the elderly are allowed to get away with it in front of other people. You know, but we're all doing it in our heads all the time, and that's why sometimes retirees or empty nest parents, they feel really down, not only because they no longer have that voice inside their head saying, well, now it's time for the meeting, or now it's time to make dinner, uh, and stuff. So for everybody, so it's important to, we're all talking to ourselves all day, so we might as well make the talk good.
That's a struggle, though. I distinctly remember my journey and well, actually, I would call it more of a battle with self talk because, growing up, it was one of those things that, you'd hear everybody always contradicting themselves when cutting themselves down when they did something wrong. That was normal. So, never put a lot of thought into it until finally I got on this journey of discovering and healing. And through talk therapy, I was taught to start holding myself accountable about the words and the verbiage that I was using when I would talk inside my head about the scenarios that I would find myself in. And it takes a lot of practice to retrain your brain, for one. And for two, it reshapes your world. Because you're absolutely correct when you say, if you go around living and talking to yourself in this negative light, the world is very gray. The world is very dark. But when you build this different vocabulary where you're always talking more positively internally, it opens up the skies and the sun begins to shine through. And that is one of the most important steps that each of us have to make within our journey, regardless of if it's overcoming a substance or overcoming trauma, just trying to heal from anything in general, is being able to start building that staircase to see the sunlight, to move the clouds yourself based off of what it is you're saying.
Yes, that's a good part of it, I mean, you do have the power to, see the sunlight and think positively. And sometimes, if you're really down, you need to start off with a neutral thought, like maybe just think about what you have to do later. But it's better than a negative thought, like something awful is going to happen and you get anxious, or life's no good right now and you get depressed. So, but then gradually start with a neutral thought and gradually work your way up to positive thoughts.
I like the cycle of that because, when you wake up in the morning and you're in one of your ruts, it does feel like it's very bleak to get out of bed. And one of my biggest influences and heroes, Marcus Aurelius, always wrote in the Meditations. In fact, he opens up book two with it, talking to himself about that same exact point. You get out of bed or you wake up and when I get out of bed, I got to deal with all these people that are going to just push my buttons. The day's going to drag on. It's going to be horrible. But in the very next sentence, he reminds himself that, this is the work of being a human. This is the work of being a man, and this is what we do. We're
Yeah.
here. We're here on this earth for those connections. We're here on this earth for all of those things that I'm sitting here dreading. So if I'm to be alive, then why am I going to waste the day being huddled up under these covers, trying to stay warm and hide from the work of being a human being?
Well, that's it. I mean, if you just hide from everything, life will get boring and you'll never grow. It might feel safe for a short time, but not for long. It is all part of part of, the challenges and the opportunity, which I prefer to call opportunities in life.
I love that terminology because I used to look at it as just kind of the mundane, I'm going through, this is what it is, got to get the results. But then
Yeah.
when I shifted to looking at each moment and each breath as an opportunity, that's where I started to learn how to turn toward life. And I started to learn how to befriend all these different things that before that would be obstacles I felt like I couldn't overcome. Like emotional feelings like depression, anxiety, that would lead to isolation and make me turn away from life. But when I started to see it as an opportunity, that's when I started to say, hey, all these different feelings, they may be a part of me. I shouldn't shun them. You know,
Yeah,
instead I should learn how to build a vocabulary to honor and celebrate the fact that they're there, because it gives me an opportunity to learn about me. And
yeah,
as I befriend those things, then I get to become stronger. And then that dread of getting out of bed each day becomes less difficult, and it becomes more of, as you said, the opportunity.
yes, okay. Yeah, so that's it. It's and the way you make it. And some of my clients who are too depressed to even get out of bed, I say it's like start with that and do a little more than you want each day. And that's a slow but a surefire way to beat depression.
which
All right.
is which is what depression does is it impedes your movements, so you get that one small step each day.
Yeah,
Then
that's it.
and then at the end of the day, you hold that up for a review and you celebrate that,
That's
and you
it.
and you're slowly moving the power out of the hand of depression and back into your own hands. So that's where that you start to build that staircase, or you build that bridge to get across the river.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, it's a good metaphor. And I think that's a good metaphor for people who are into the outdoors as you are. So good some a metaphor that they can relate to, building a bridge and across. So
But metaphors are a powerful thing.
they
We
are.
we use them all the time in our communication and in our storytelling, and that's been the theme of my mission and my work, is to build that bridge based off of storytelling, using the metaphors to be as like visual aids or teaching aids, if you will. Because when you go into the wilderness or into the outdoors and you set off on a trail, there's struggles. You got to
Oh
face
yes.
you got to face the fear of the unknown. You got to
Yeah.
tell you're testing your own will and your own ability. And then you bring that back into the concrete world, and you're that much stronger. You're that much better off
Yeah.
for having faced that challenge.
Yes, that's it. And that's it. We just we you do what you got to do to and a lot of times necessity will cause somebody to grow when you have no choice but to conquer something, whether it's an animal attacking you in the woods, or whether it's a tough living situation or an addiction. If you have any survival instinct at all, you realize you have no choice but to beat this.
Well, that's the fundamental key right there. Is within
Yeah,
all of us, we have that survival instinct.
that's
You know,
right.
our body and our mind, no matter how much we fight it, we have the
Yeah,
instinct to take that next breath,
yeah,
to move that next step forward. And what hangs us up is that voice of depression that chews on the unknown. They chews on that voice of fear that we all have as well. Because life does have two sides of the coin, and both sides of that coin are valid. It boils
that's
down
it.
to finding that reminder that we still have a choice. We have a decision to make with which way we're going to plan our next footstep.
That's it. Okay. Yeah. So it's a lot, and I've written some books. Actually, I've written more than 20 books that are available on Amazon. You can just put my name in, or um, building a new website, healyshealing.com. Yeah, my last name goes very well with healing, so calling it that. And so Well, Mike, I only have a few minutes left, though. Is there anything else you'd like to ask me?
I think the last question that I would have you speak on is if somebody was in the beginning of trying to combat that depression and trying
Yeah.
to find their first footsteps and they came to you, where would you point them to start?
Well, I would say definitely go to therapy. I mean, check your insurance or what's there, and I would also recommend, well, for me personally, I have a self-help trilogy called Heal Your Memories. It's a combination of true stories of people who overcame adversity, such as school or work bullying, rape on the streets, career sidelining injuries, and that they were now all happy and thriving. And another part of the books are exercises to help you get rid of the feelings of some of the bad memories.
Well, Frank, thank you very much for the time. It has been a pleasure to pick your brain and get to meet you. And I don't believe in the words goodbye. So until we meet again, whether it's in this life or the next, have a happy, safe, and successful journey.
Thank you, and you too, Mike.